Brodes Media.
Oh boy. Here we are again. I'm having deja vu. The Eagles breaking my heart into 7,000 pieces. I must admit, there wasn't a second today where I thought about anything other than all of the problems, all of the issues, what went wrong. There's so much context and content in this game. It could take years to rip through it all. Seriously, a bunch of different angles. And I'm probably going to be working overtime in my head after I upload this show. And we'll continue all week long. Even heading into the New Orleans Saints game. It'll be Sunday at 12:52. I'll still be thinking about this with about 8 minutes to go until the next game. Probably not healthy. But I'm just honest. And that's where I'll be. Before I get more into the details, though, if you are new here, hello and welcome on into Brodes Media. If you are interested in discussing Philly sports every day, of course, you can hit the subscribe button. Hitting the thumbs up button helps out massively as well. And you can take me on the road with you. All your podcasting platforms will have Sports Talk with Brodes, if you search that in the search bar. And if you leave a 5-star rating and a review on those platforms, it helps out the algorithms like you have no idea. So I can't thank you all so much for that. And lastly, Coffee with Brodes live streams twice a week. To gain access, you join the memberships here on YouTube, and you also get access to our Discord channel as well. All the information is down below in the description. Thank you all so much. I'll shut up now and enjoy the show. This one is going to sting for a long, long time. Here's the issue. It's week 2, man. It's week 2. I went back and looked at when the Seattle Seahawks game went down last season. That was after San Francisco kicked your ass. That was after the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas smothered you and beat you down big time like you were a nobody. So it was already so late into the season. You can't hurt me anymore. I'm already as hurt can be. Now, the whole season is ahead of us. And you think that maybe there would be an optimistic side? That there's plenty of time to get back on track? But that's not how my brain works. Not with this head coach. Not with this leader. Now, I went back and reflected on everything that transpired in yesterday's postgame show. And here's reality. I was so damn stunned. And we were all trying to figure out the layers to the failure. And unfortunately for us, there's about 80,000 things to pick through. There were so many potential debates that can happen with one football loss. I don't know if it will ever be that way again. That's how many angles there are to dissect. Pass rush sucks. Howie sucked putting together some of these pieces. Jalen with the interception late. We got to go back to that because in the moment it felt desperate. But now that you have some time to digest it, yo, dude, all you needed to do was to get Jake Elliott in range. Some of this is on Kellen Moore for what was drawn up. Some of this is on Jalen for not being smart enough to recognize time awareness, time out. So that's essentially my point, is you get a night's sleep on it. You process it every second of the day. And you start to realize where there's some more conversation that has to be had. So I didn't blame Nick as much post-game because I don't know what he does. But I can't let him off the hook. He's the face of this whole thing. And when I found out from 2 guys in the locker room, Reed Blankenship said it, and Jordan Mailata confirmed it as well. When I found out that Nick Sirianni did not address the team afterwards, I almost dropped to the floor. In what world does this locker room deserve to police themselves? Not after last year. There needs to be someone in charge. Why didn't the head coach say anything? This isn't the time to not make a peep because they all know. Because you could hide behind that narrative. What do you have to say? You don't think Bryce Huff knows he played like shit? You don't think Nolan Smith knows that he got popped and dropped like he's a little twig? He looks like he's 5 years old getting beat up by a 22-year-old trying to get off blocks. It's a joke. So what does Nick have to say? When they look back at the tape, they know everything. They don't even have to look back at the tape. They know they sucked. Yeah, but that's not who this team needs now. There is a time for that. There are times where I can totally buy that way of coaching. When you have a super heavy veteran core, when you have guys in the room that have a different way of leading. They don't have that right now. Maybe teams that consistently go back to back deep playoff runs. Kyle Shanahan might have some opportunities for that. Andy Reid might have some. But I don't even think Andy Reid would do that. Because there is an important message that has to be delivered in the moment. It doesn't hit the same the next morning. It doesn't hit the same way when you go over film. It doesn't hit the same way. It needs to be when everyone is together and, let's be honest, kind of vulnerable. When you go through the lows together, you don't wait. The coach didn't speak after that disgusting loss. How do you not speak? How do you not say anything to those 53 men that just went out there? Yet I'm hearing from Nakobe Dean that the details weren't good. Well, if Nick was supposed to stay away from offense, stay away from defense, his job was to probably, I guess, the way they looked at it is make sure they're not playing sloppy, make sure there's not a lot of penalties, make sure they're playing clean. Nakobe Dean says this team screwed up details heavily. Quinyon Mitchell, Bryce Huff, Darius Slay, they're all saying, oh, they screwed up. So all these guys are coming out saying, I screwed up, I screwed up, I screwed up. Well, then what's Nick's job? Is it Nick's job to make sure these guys aren't screwing up? Kellen has the scheme. Kellen is calling plays mid-game. Vic Fangio, you know what you brought him to do? You brought him in to do what Vic Fangio does. Which is funny because, well, the personnel is trash. If all of these guys aren't playing structured and aren't doing the right things in crunch time, it has to reflect the head coach. Nick Sirianni deserves 1,000% more of the blame than I ripped into him last night, but I was in disbelief. I couldn't believe it. That doesn't take any of my frustration off of Saquon for not catching a ball that's put right into his hands. But still, this was my fear with Nick. He does not command the room. Jalen Carter didn't play in the early series because he didn't show up to team meeting on time, or a team, I don't know if it was a meeting per se, but it was something affiliated with the team. He's not even showing up. So he gets sat down for a series, and then he's back playing 46 of 60-ish snaps. Does that mean that Jalen Carter knows he can essentially get away with murder? Because what's one series? And while we might have threw it out there at a particular time, but I mean, I kind of forgot about it. You kind of forget about the first series defensively when everything happened at the back end of the game with how bad it went? I even remember. So how much was that one series really doing what Nick Sirianni feels is a reasonable punishment? Or does Nick even have the power to do it? Or is that a Vic Fangio move? Regardless, Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis sucking right now. I didn't realize until we saw the snap count that Thomas Booker only played 9 snaps. He made 3 outstanding plays. So he was mucking and making an impact on 33% of his opportunities. He did more than everybody else combined, and he did it in significantly less snaps. That's crazy. Josh Sweat said that they're not together. They're not working as one. They're not rushing as a unit. I'll ask the question again. What does Nick Sirianni do if he's not included in all of the meetings for the offense? If he's not included in the meetings with the defense? Isn't the areas that I'm discussing right now that we heard were problematic, isn't that where his expertise should be? Because he's not spending hours and hours and hours into the books trying to come up with this sexy-ass creative scheme. And quite frankly, I thought Kellen Moore was a little blah in that department. I'm sorry, I should not be living and dying with Britton Covey as one of my options here. Yes, you're down A.J. Brown, but there's enough talent to have a little bit more spice in your play calling and your design. Now, when it comes to the actual in-game calls offensively, if Kellen Moore's the one doing it, which is definitely what's happening here, as much as I hate Nick, and I know a lot of you despise Nick and had worries about Nick just as much as I did, there's a reason why I spent 8-9 months roasting this clown. Because it's not real. It's not the NFL life. I'm sorry, it's not. It's not what works. It's childish. He's running down the sidelines full speed, dapping up C.J. Gardner-Johnson after a big 4th down stop. He's got this goofy-ass smile. Howie Roseman's all behind him. He made it seem the game's wrapped up. The players are only mimicking what the vibes are that the head coach gives off. Clown show. When he has that goofy action on the sidelines, the team is a reflection of that. And I remember vividly him talking to fans through the media about how he knows that things need to change there. He read a book. He read a book about leadership. Remember? You can't argue with refs. You can't do this and put it in perspective. You got to make sure you can control your emotions. Well, in 1 second, you're giddy and happy as hell, high skipping down the sidelines to get into the face of CJ. And not too long later, when it seemed as if the Eagles were trying to get the Falcons to bite on a hard count, they did, but nobody snapped the ball to get the penalty to be enforced when they were in the neutral zone. His face is red, spitting at the guys as they're walking back to the sideline. And you know, there's a part of me that feels if you screw up, that's cool, and I'm okay with you being angry. If you're messing up big time, where the objective is to get a hard count and to get the other team to jump, when they do, and you don't snap the ball, that's an issue. But doesn't that also go back on the coach? They're not prepared. Whether it's fair or not, whenever something like that happens, penalties, you can always say, well, what do you want to do? If the offensive lineman holds, that's the offensive lineman holding. How is that on the head coach? If a DB has pass interference, why would that go on the head coach? That's the way it is. Undisciplined always relates back to the guy that's got the headset on. So you can see the two extremes in emotions when he stated he'd clean that up. And it's only week 2. And as much as you want to pretend the door is closed on last year's downfall, it's not. Because you don't lose like this. The amount of losses that Nick Sirianni has under his belt when they have the lead at the 2-minute warning and these style of gut-wrenching losses go down. This isn't your standard, we didn't play well, we'll get them next time. Dave Zangaro has been in how many locker rooms? Of course, he does a phenomenal job covering the Eagles for NBC Sports Philadelphia. He said that was one of the weirdest, strangest, quietest, brutal locker rooms he's ever been in covering the franchise. That's not good. Not that I expected them to be throwing a party, but I do think it relates to last year. It was almost a holy shit, we are them again. Oh my God. I thought we were done with that. Nah, it's still here. It's still in us. I think it was almost a smack in the face of reality. And you know what? There's even a bigger picture that I want to get into briefly. Regardless on if they won this game or not, if they're down their number 1 wide receiver or not, dude, they're not Super Bowl good. You know what I mean? They might be a 9-win team, 9-8, 10-7 if you're lucky. But they're closer to the Atlanta Falcons with Kirk Cousins than they are Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs, than they are the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, seriously, I know the Niners had a rough loss against the Minnesota Vikings, but still, when I see the Eagles play, it doesn't scream that dominating team where the eye test tells you the story. We know. You know. We've seen it before. You know what? You know what we do a lot when special seasons happen? We date back to a certain game. Carolina on the road, Thursday Night Football, that's when we knew. It clicked. It snapped. This is the same thing, but in reverse. This is what I needed to know, that this team is a group of very weak-minded individuals that fracture and break in a football sense on the football field. Kirk Cousins in Atlanta went downfield in, 12 seconds? In 12 seconds, they were down in the red zone. That's unbearable, man. Unbearable. Now, I want to go back to the go for it early, not kicking a field goal to go up 3-0 stance. I double down on, I love the decision to go for it. Here's why. We are a prime example of being on the other end of a team kicking field goals early. The Green Bay Packers. When you hold the Packers to a field goal, it feels like a win. Hey! 6-0, could be 21-0. Let's go. Kicking field goals bites you in the ass more than you think it does. And this whole narrative that you have to get 3 points there in the first quarter of a game. No, you don't. No, you don't. I don't understand. The reason we have a Super Bowl is because Doug Peterson, in the red zone, decided to throw a ridiculous pass to his quarterback by a backup tight end in Trey Burton. You only love it because it worked. But the philosophy of trying to punch a team in the mouth and get a touchdown and not settle for points, when you settle for points, it gives the defense some hope, some life, some juice. It comes with the risk. Of course, you could get 0 points, but you could get 7. And the Eagles did get 0 points and still had a chance and should have won the damn football game if Saquon Barkley just made the catch. Now, in this industry, the role is to always have a stance. If you feel one way more than the other, dig into that side a little bit. Here's reality. I can't I can't. Not for this pass to Saquon situation. I think both options are very fair. I really do. I'm going to play it down the middle. Might sound as if it's a cop-out answer. But if you draw up a play when everyone expects a run and you stay uber aggressive, they were aggressive going for the early fourth down, no field goal. They didn't get it. They were uber aggressive on third down, trying to throw it to Saquon Barkley with a chance to stop the clock. It was a risk, and that's an aggressive risk, though, because if you get the first down on a simple pitch and catch, you're good to go. You lock it up, and the game is yours. You secure it. You're going for the win. I can never really fault a team for going for the win, going for the aggressive side of things, and the play was there. So it wasn't really stupid. But if you wanted to go the traditional route and milk the clock and simplify the game and take the very basic standard way, knowing time, space, score, awareness of that particular moment, it's a case-by-case thing. I would have never argued that they should have passed it if they didn't. So I could have lived with them running it too. And I probably would have leaned on the side of taking the simplified way. The moment felt you should go simple. And another thing that I'm not going to crush, I don't know if it's Nick, I don't know if it's Kellen Moore. As you can tell, I'm in a very tough spot there. I don't know who exactly has final say. But there are some out there that think it's foolish to kick the field goal because there's not a difference in a 3 or 6 score game. Oh my God, yeah, there is. It's a huge difference on if the Falcons only needed a field goal to tie it. Anyone who's making the argument that they should have went for it on 4th and not kicked the field goal, if Nick Sirianni and Kellen Moore didn't put up the field goal and you were allowing the Atlanta Falcons to maybe get into field goal position because, quote, at worst, it could be a game going to overtime, you'd be absolutely destroying that decision today. Let alone if they went down and actually scored a touchdown somehow. Can't rule that out of the equation either. So, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get how this keeps happening under Nick Sirianni, but if there's a common trend under the same regime, then there is something going wrong. And we know Nick Sirianni loves explosive plays, right? That's a metric that they take a look at week in and week out. This is courtesy of Zach Berman. Week 2 explosive plays based on Sirianni's criteria of 10-plus yards rushing or 16 yards passing. The offense has 9 explosive plays in week 2. Only 3 were in the passing game, though. 6 came from rushing. So only 3 explosive plays. While the defense, 3 passing, that is. And the defense allowed 5 passing and 6 rushing. Defense allowed 11 explosive plays. Their defense is a serious issue. Serious issue. Here's Acho talking on Fox Sports, I believe he does, doesn't he? Doesn't he do Fox Sports? The facility. Take a listen to him describing the personnel on the defensive side of the football.
Let me get to it, big dog. I play defense, obviously. Yeah. A couple people are to blame. This person's blame never usually comes out of my mouth, but I will say this, and we have a close enough relationship for me to say it. Howie Roseman. There's a disconnect between the general manager, Howie Roseman, and the defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio. What do I mean? The Eagles do not have a pass rusher that can win by himself. As a result, the Eagles defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, he chooses to send pressure early on in the game. What happened when he sent pressure early on in the game? Darnell Mooney beats Chauncey Gardner-Johnson for the 41-yard touchdown. That was the only touchdown the Falcons had throughout the duration of the first 58 minutes of ball. So now with the minute and a half left, what does Vic Fangio do? He reverts back to his roots. Fangio does not like to send pressure. He likes to rush 4 and win with 4. The dilemma is Howie Roseman has not equipped Vic Fangio with the roster that can win with 4. Vic Fangio had the number 1 defense in football in 2018 with the Chicago Bears. But who did he have on that defensive line? Chase Daniel was there, my brother was there. But he had Khalil Mack. So good. And Khalil Mack can win without having additional rushers. So with that being said, Vic Fangio does not have a roster that can win with 4, so Vic has to bring an additional player. As a result, the Eagles can't get home. When I'm looking at it, I blame Howie Roseman for that late game collapse because where's the elite pass rusher? Kirk Cousins is sitting there with the bad Achilles. If you can just have somebody win, but you acquire Bryce Huff for $50 million from the Jets. Bryce Huff had one 10-sack season. It was in his contract year. Do not trust a player who only balls in his contract year.
All right, so there's more to it, but it just gives you a little bit of perspective from a football mind that sees it his way, and I see it very similarly. I don't know what you want Vic Fangio to do. Everyone's up in arms saying the scheme, not sending pressure, this and that. It won't work. Vic Fangio has been around football a long time. I promise you, if the simple fix was just bring the house or bring bodies, he would do it. You think he wants to sit through that? Now, he does deserve blame for the crap that happened late. He does deserve blame for that. But just in totality, you can't get home. You got to send pressure. You're not blitzing. I promise you, you do. Bad things are coming your way. Big time. And while you might say, well, you can't just sit and allow teams, if you can't get home with your front 4, you can't just let them pick you apart. You got to try something. I think he filtered in trying something. And then when that goes bad too, what do? I don't know if there's an option that will satisfy any of us right now because the personnel is that bad. I felt there was something I wanted to sneak in there before we got to the calls. Oh, speaking of Nakobe Dean, no. Devin White and that whole mess that we brought up previously, Isaiah Rodgers is now subtweeting, if you will, the organization with Instagram posts. I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines of control what you can control. Doesn't seem like he's very happy either. A lot of guys not happy right now. Something tells me there's something off behind closed doors. It's easy to have a smile on your face in training camp. This type of stuff should not be happening week 2. It happens week 2 when there is systemic problems. And I hate to break it to you, the whole Nick Sirianni experience, that is the perfect description on why we have problems internally. Along with Howie Roseman's drafting in the first round with these defensive players. All right, let's take some anytime hotline calls.
Brodes, dude, there's so many things I want to say. I'm driving to work right now, tired because I stayed up to watch the Eagles get beat by the Falcons and Kirk Cousins drive down field on us in 4 plays while Slay Jr. acts like he's never covered a post route in his life. Shipley and Goddard got to be more involved. Milton needs to go to defensive tackle next to Davis. We got to move Carter around the D-line, especially on the end, to see if he can do something anywhere else. And we got to get Booker and Hunt out there and involved. And Devin White needs to just blitz. We got to make changes, because if we keep doing the same thing and expecting different outcomes, then we're insane. And I'm going to keep going and insane. I can't take it anymore. This team is incredible at disappointing us, and at just everything unravel in every game. Go Birds.
I appreciate the call at 5:42 in the morning as you're getting yourself ready for work. I just don't know if it's as easy as Devin White plays and you're just going to be good getting pressure. I think that's going to come with a billion flaws at the same time. Would I be willing to see if you could just ask him to go? Maybe. I like the idea, though, of something you just brought up. Jalix Hunt has not really been given a chance to go after it here. Maybe you find a way to get creative with Devin White to some level. I don't know. Maybe you could work Thomas Booker in more. I don't know, really. I don't know. Josh Sweat is not the impact guy you need. Bryce Huff is terrible. He's terrible. He made a comment about having to go back and attack his plan more. And I'm thinking, instead of attacking your plan more, maybe you look at your plan. You look at the steps you're taking. Maybe reassess that. Maybe that's where we begin. But you mentioned some of these guys and throwing them around a bit. Maybe it's what you have to do. Maybe there'll be someone that can spark some energy because they don't expect them to do well. The Thomas Booker factor. Or if Jalix Hunt can get a sack and bring all the energy. Sunday is going to be a nightmare. Just a nightmare in New Orleans.
Brodes, what's up, man? It's been a hot minute. After a loss like that, that just fucking stinks. I mean, they had that game won, and they showed that they had no clutch in them. And it doesn't surprise me, given what I saw last year. I think this game just told us that this is last year's team and not 2022, and not the 2022 team. I don't think we're ever going to see the 2022 team again. I mean, the defense, what the heck are you doing? They clearly didn't want to go out there after Saquon dropped that ball. They didn't want to put up any sort of resilience, and it's coaching. Yes, the defense does not have a lot of talent. I consider the defense to be a rebuilding unit. But, you got to imagine, these losses in the final 2 minutes of games, they just keep piling up. And at this point, you can't help but look at the head coach. And I'm a Nick Sirianni guy. I love Nick Sirianni. I think he has done great things for this organization, and I think he's even way too overhated. But I think at this point, when you keep losing games like this, you're just destroying the mental toughness, and you're destroying the confidence of all your young players in your locker room. They clearly have no answers. They're missing guys like A.J. Brown, Kelsey, etc. And do you pull a Joe Girardi? If they keep losing games, if they lose to the Saints and the Buccaneers, they might have to pull a Joe Girardi and find their Rob Thompson to save the season.
I don't know if Jeffrey Lurie would do that so early in the season. Maybe it's because it's a bad look on him after the whole debate all offseason. Then you would essentially admit your wrongs 4 weeks into the season. And in football, it's a lot different than a baseball manager. There's so much more schematics involved and the whole training camp and what you're trying to install into these guys. And, I mean, I'm not ruling anything out if it gets that bad, but I think it would have to get worse than 1-3. That's a garbage start to the season for sure. But even for Jeffrey Lurie to pull the plug on someone, he goes extra with Andy Reid. He goes extra for guys. When he went with Chip Kelly at the back end there and decided to eventually snip him with barely any time left in the season, that's the outlier. Doug in the offseason. So that's normally based off the track record on when they do it. Maybe circumstances change because of last year's failure, that there's such a shorter leash this year. Like I said, I'm not ruling it out. Anything is possible if it gets that bad and you're losing in similar ways that they lose like they did yesterday. Of course, it's possible, but I would be shocked. I would be shocked if after 4 games, that's when they decide, see ya. Football is different than firing an NHL coach or firing an NBA coach mid-season. Nick Sirianni doesn't have the respect of the room. This isn't the first time I'm mentioning this. This was covered over the entire offseason, where my friends and buddies would hit me up and say, bro, you got to stop. You got to turn the page. You got to move forward. You got to put that behind you. And I couldn't shake it. Last night's loss, I think, literally went back to everybody in that locker room goes, oh yeah, who am I kidding? This is the real Nick Sirianni. That's right. Here's a reminder. Because it doesn't accidentally happen again. It doesn't accidentally happen 2 years in a row. There's a reason why. A lack of belief, a lack of respect, a lack of appreciation of his style. Not sure what it is. But these type of losses, they're not normal. It's not regular. There's a lack of something. And it starts with Nick. And until that gets figured out, we're going to have a really fractured locker room. And that's what I think we're sitting in right now. A fractured locker room. All right, everybody, that's going to do it. I appreciate you hanging out with me. You guys are the best in the world, and I will see you all on the next one.